an unsinkable ship, the most luxurious passenger liner ever built. And in just 2 hours and 40 minutes, it was swallowed by the dark waters of the Atlantic. Everyone knows Titanic hit an iceberg, but almost no one asks the real question. Did Titanic really sink because of an iceberg? Was it truly just that? What about the fire that had been burning for days? What about the lifeboats that were never filled? What about the warnings that were ignored? And perhaps the most interesting question of all, how did one of the greatest maritime disasters in history turn into one of the greatest films ever made? Today, we will talk about Titanic, not the way it is usually told to you, but the way it actually happened. RMS Titanic, a dream built on confidence. The RMS Titanic was not just a ship, it was the floating embodiment of humanity's confidence in itself. It was built to carry high-income passengers between Europe and North America. At the time, it cost $7.5 million to build. In today's money, that figure exceeds $200 million. Even its size reflected pure grandeur. It was 269 meters long, 53 meters tall, and more than 28 meters wide. That meant almost the length of 3 football fields and the height of a 17-story building. People did not just admire Titanic, they trusted it, and most dangerously, they believed it could never sink. April 14th, 1912. The night everything changed. 4 days after leaving Southampton for New York, Titanic entered the North Atlantic. The sea was calm, the night was unusually quiet. That calm created a deadly outcome. At 11:40 p.m., the lookouts noticed something directly ahead, a massive iceberg barely visible against the dark horizon. Moments later, the ship scraped along the iceberg. Below the waterline, multiple compartments were damaged. Water began pouring in faster than anyone expected. Very quickly, the truth became clear. The ship that was said to be unsinkable was sinking. The 6 critical mistakes that sealed Titanic's fate. 1. Design flaws hidden behind innovation. Titanic had 16 watertight compartments. On paper, this was revolutionary. But there was a critical flaw. These compartments did not extend up to the passenger deck. As the lower compartments filled, water spilled over into the next ones. Once this process began, stopping it was nearly impossible. Months earlier, Titanic's sister ship Olympic had survived a major collision. This incident convinced everyone that these ships were indestructible. They were wrong. 2. Lifeboats sacrificed for luxury. The number of lifeboats on Titanic should have been enough for everyone on board. But there were only 20 lifeboats. The reason was simple. Lifeboats made the deck look crowded. Safety was not the priority. Appearance was. When evacuation began, the reality was brutal. There was not enough space for everyone. 3. The fire no one wanted to talk about. While Titanic was still in port, a coal fire broke out in one of the boiler rooms. The fire continued throughout the voyage. It weakened one of the steel bulkheads meant to stop flooding, so when Titanic struck the iceberg, it was already dangerously vulnerable. The iceberg did not act alone. It merely brought an ongoing process to its end. 4. Ignored warnings. Throughout April 14th, Titanic received multiple iceberg warnings from other ships. Some were taken seriously. Others were brushed aside. One of the most critical warnings came from the Californian, a ship surrounded by ice just 10 miles ahead. That message never reached Captain Smith. Titanic continued at full speed. 5. Lookouts without binoculars. It may be hard to believe, but the lookouts had no binoculars. To make matters worse, atmospheric conditions worked against them. The combination of cold water and warmer air created an optical illusion on the horizon. The iceberg became nearly invisible, and by the time it was spotted, there was no escape. 6. No drills, no preparation. Perhaps the most tragic mistake of all. There had been no emergency drills on board. Passengers did not know where to go. The crew did not know how to manage the evacuation. Many lifeboats were lowered half empty. Hundreds of people did not die because of the ocean, but because of chaos. Out of more than 2,200 people on board, only 866 survived. From disaster to cinema legend. In 1997, James Cameron decided to tell Titanic's story, but he did not want to make an ordinary film. A near full-scale replica of Titanic was built, over 236 meters long. Filming took place in a massive tank holding 17 million gallons of water. Because the ship could not be sunk as a single piece, the set was designed in sections. Camera angles and practical effects were combined with precision. More than 100 stunt performers recreated the chaos on deck. Miniature ships were used for scenes where the ship broke apart. The result was one of the most convincing disaster films in cinema history. Fact and fiction. Jack Dawson was fictional, but there really was a man named Joseph Dawson on board. Rose was fictional as well. The character was inspired by artist Beatrice Wood. The hand-scene drawing in the film belonged to James Cameron himself. Margaret Brown was real. She helped people into lifeboats and urged crews to return for survivors. The elderly couple who chose to stay together were also real. Isidore and Ida Strauss refused to leave one another behind. The question that still remains: could Rose have shared the door with Jack? Maybe yes, maybe no. But the real question is this: even if Titanic had avoided the iceberg, how long could it have survived with all these mistakes? Let me know what you think in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to Historic Talks for real stories told as they truly happened.